Julie. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's so great to be here.
How is Las Vegas?
It's getting warmer, which is good because it's been like the areas around here are getting a lot of snow, like breaking records type of snow within an hour or two. And so it's been cool here, which has been nice. And, now we're getting up into the 80s. So
Yeah, that's nice and cool.
it is for us.
You're used to
Maybe not so much so.
Yeah, that's like, I can't even handle that, man. I'd have to be inside with the AC cranked constantly. So, we were chatting and you were talking about that you've been coaching a lot about negative feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And tell me more about that.
Well, as I've come to learn, feelings or emotions are simply just vibrations that our physical body has. And I think we as humans categorize emotions in like positive or negative. And I've just been learning that, emotion is emotion and we get to make it bad or make it good. And I think a lot of people have brought to their sessions, I just don't want to feel bad. I don't want to feel negative emotions. And then we really ask, what are these emotions and why don't you want to feel them? Because they're spending so much time and energy trying to push these emotions away. And it actually becomes quite exhausting for them.
Yeah, I understand that.
Mm-hmm. And so we just kind of talk about it. And like one person came to the session and it was actually a celebration session for them. And they said, my goal this week was just to feel the negative emotions that came up into my body and just let them be there. And they talked about how empowering that was for them to just, if they felt uncomfortable or if they felt anxious or if they felt anger, they just let it be there. And they just noticed what happened in their body. Like, did they feel pressure in their head or did they feel this pit in their stomach? They just noticed what this emotion felt like. And then they just sat with it and let it be there. And what they discovered is that when they just allowed it to be there, it would dissipate. And how empowering that was for them to realize, oh, okay, this isn't going to kill me. This emotion is not going to hurt me in any way, shape, or form. But it does not feel amazing, but it's not going to be here forever. And I think what this person said is, if I allow it, I'm afraid that it's going to be there forever. If I allow the anxiety, I'm afraid it's going to stay.
Yeah.
And what they found was the exact opposite, that they were able to just be with it and able to, I guess in a way, tolerate it and notice that, oh, this is just part of my life today and it's okay. And then when they talked about it, how much more empowered they felt that they were able to just let it be there. And then they felt like they had power over the emotion.
So, I mean, I'm sure you don't know this, but how long do you sit with something like that? And if you sit with it for a long time, can that be a problem?
Well, and I don't know, like everyone gets to choose what they can tolerate. Like sometimes people might have a chronic anxiety or chronic anger or something that they are just used to feeling all the time. And sometimes they're going to have to sit with it. And then they're like, okay, I can't do this anymore. And maybe distract themselves with something else. That's okay too. I mean, it's just an experiment. You get to decide what works for you and just see, because you're not going to get swallowed up into it if you don't want to be. You get to choose, even in emotions. And sometimes I think we think, negative emotions are bad and they have no purpose in my life. But what I found for me is they actually have some utility. Like my husband and I got in a disagreement last weekend about, we were trying to make plans to have people over for dinner and there was a misunderstanding and it was just like a heavy kind of anger, frustration type thing. And our relationship isn't normally like that. We normally talk things out. We normally, see where the other person's coming from. But this one was a little different. And when I felt the negative emotion, it was almost like a cue, like, hey, there's something that needs to be taken care of here. So instead of just sitting in it, I did sit in it for a few hours, but instead of just making it grow and grow and grow and grow and have lots of, angry thoughts about him and how dumb this whole situation was and who was right and who was wrong, it was like, oh, this is a cue that, you don't have to be here. You can actually go have a conversation, even though the conversation might have been uncomfortable. But negative emotions do have utility. Like fear has utility. If we're afraid of something, maybe that's our brain trying to protect us, and we get to like decide. And I think sometimes we don't realize that, oh, they have purpose.
Yeah. So when you're sitting there angry for a couple hours.
Well, and I wasn't sitting there. I was
that's what I was going to say.
Cleaning toilets. I was like really mad, and I was like cleaning. I mean, we had a joke with our fourth son. We would say, "Ooh, let's go make him mad, because when he gets mad, he cleans." And
really?
So we would like kind of poke the bear a little bit, and then he'd go get mad and clean something. And yeah.
Wow.
Kind of funny, but that's what I did. Like when I was mad, I just went and cleaned something, and I was just, trying to get out that energy some other way.
I probably go organize a drawer or something.
Mm-hmm.
I probably do something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember what I do, but sometimes when you say sit with it, sometimes it does mean to just sit and think about it, right? And then other times it means do something while you're thinking about it.
Well, I mean, sitting with it, I guess, doesn't actually mean sitting. It could be just let it be there. So I let it be there as I was cleaning the toilet, or I let it be there as I was fixing dinner, instead of trying to push it away and saying, I'm just not going to deal with this, and I'm just going to decide to be happy and go on, which is fine too. But I mean, really letting these emotions have their process of why they're there. And it helped me realize, okay, what am I upset about? What can I do here that would be generous to me and to him? And it was just more of a mental process. Sitting with it could mean just letting it be in your body and your space for a while, and really being curious about it.
That's interesting. So you're not getting more angry while you're cleaning the toilet. You're kind of just thinking about everything.
Well, I could have been more angry. I'm trying to think. I think when I get defensive, I get more angry, because then I'm trying to prove my point and how I'm right.
Right.
And it's really interesting to notice the thoughts that are coming up, and if they're producing more of the anger, or and going there and letting it produce more anger, and then realizing, okay, is this really true? Did he really mean to say that? Or is this really what we were talking about? And most of the time it's like, oh, okay, well, the story in my head is this, and there's a completely different story in his head about the same situation. And it's like, okay. And then the anger kind of subsides a little bit. And then it's like, okay, it's just an opportunity to analyze and to notice.
That's what I was going to say. So when you're sitting there cleaning, you're actually analyzing.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. Is there like a printout for that? Like what you can do while?
I'm sure there is.
That'd be cool to have
people
to Google
it.
I'm all about the list,
Yeah. I mean, there's lots of things that we can do, but what feels good, not feels good, but what's authentic to you in the moment? Is it to just shut that part down and pretend like it's not there? Or is it to learn how to like, oh, okay, I'm having the full human experience here? Because I don't know about you, but we were taught like, we're supposed to be happy. This is all about the pursuit of happiness. This is what life is. And then if we're not happy, then something's wrong. It's like, I was never really taught to express emotion. I mean, emotions back in the 60s and 70s It wasn't real. I mean, our parents didn't even know how to show emotion. I saw happiness, I saw anger, I saw frustration, I saw sadness, but there's so many more emotions than just that. And like when I was raising my own kids, it's like, stop crying. Why are you so upset? Here, have a
Yes.
cupcake, trying to fix an emotion. But what if we just allowed ourselves to just be humans and experience all of them?
Yeah. I remember when I was really little, this is a terrible thing, but I was crying. I don't know, I must have been 6 and I was crying, and my dad came in and he said, "Why are you crying?" And I don't know what I said, but so he took me into the bathroom and he made me look in the mirror at myself crying.
Mm.
And then I didn't like it, so I stopped. But he was my dad was awesome. I love my dad. But I remember doing that and I thought, wow, I wonder if that was a bad thing that he made me go watch myself cry so I would stop. So I'd be embarrassed and stop.
Interesting. And maybe that was the thing back then.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
probably was. And I probably stressed him out when I cried. So he wanted somehow to get me to stop.
Right. Because when other people are having emotion, we think it makes us uncomfortable or it makes us feel something.
Yeah.
And it really doesn't. It's our thoughts about what they're experiencing. Like, oh my gosh, this is annoying if you have a kid who's crying and I need to make it stop. Well, it's just we're doing something to make us feel better and not allowing them to have their process of feeling an emotion.
Although, what do you think if you have a baby that won't stop crying?
Well,
It goes
no.
on for hours. Just let them process.
No, I think it's usually a signal that something's up, So, and who knows why babies cry? They're hungry, they're messy, they're uncomfortable, or they just need to exercise their lungs, or they have colic, or who knows? And it's very uncomfortable.
And they're babies.
And they're babies, and we just get to let them be babies.
Well, I still want to, I'm still thinking about this, about when you're having an emotion and you're sitting with it or scrubbing with it, of pulling out some kind of a list that tells you what to do. Like, oh, I got to pull my list out. I'm angry at my husband. Let me look at this list. Like, be curious.
Right.
Analyze what's going on while you're sitting there. And then, so how do you get to the place where you can actually go talk calmly when you're done analyzing and scrubbing?
Well, I think something that we were taught in life coach school certification is how to even name feelings. And a really cool process that we learned was, okay, so I'm feeling anger. So if I really want to learn how to be present with this, I can sit there and this isn't while I'm cleaning a toilet. This could be more intentional of just sitting there and just noticing where in my body I can feel this emotion. And like my chest would get really tight and my head would get like pressure. Like I'm just noticing in what parts, and like, does it have a weight to it? Like you can ask yourself, what weight does it have? Is it light? Is it heavy? Is it just kind of stuck? Just describing it in a physical way, like visualizing it. Does it have a color? What about a texture? Is it smooth? Is it rough? Is it pointy? Is it sharp? Is it dull? Does it have movement? Is it vibrating or is it just stuck? Is it just really just being present with that emotion and just noticing where it is and if it moves? And even when you can do that, there's usually a tendency for it to release a little bit. Then you notice it a little bit more. And some people, when I've walked them through this exercise of feeling an emotion, they can actually feel a release. They can feel it like moving up and out of their head or out through their arms and out their fingers, and they feel this sense of, oh, okay, that's what that emotion feels like. And I was really scared to feel it, but it really wasn't that bad. It was just, I'm going to notice what it's doing in my body and just let it do its thing.
And that also works with panic and anxiety.
Maybe I'm not one that feels anxious a lot of times.
Yeah.
I have had anxious moments,
Mhm.
but I'm not typically an anxious person who feels anxiety all the time. But I think it's really interesting when I like anxiety, my heart starts beating faster.
Mhm.
I feel a tightness. And when I feel that, I'm like, oh, okay, this is anxiety. This is what anxiety feels like. And me just talking to myself, like just recognizing and acknowledging, okay, this is anxiety. And then I think, okay, do I have anything to be anxious about here? Usually I don't. It just comes up. It's really strange. And I can't really think of a reason why it's there. But me just saying, okay, this is anxiety. You're safe. Things are okay. We can just let this be here. You can let your heart beat really fast. You can be with the tightness. And just knowing that I'm taking care of myself in that way and I don't have to fix anything per se. But I mean, people who experience anxiety and panic on a consistent basis, maybe they do need some medication or, I'm not going to say, oh, this works for everything, but
Right.
it's just a way for you to be with yourself.
I find it helps to, if you're with somebody and you're having it, just to say, I'm anxious right now.
Mm-hmm.
I did that I think on my first live that I did,
Mm-hmm.
because I was terrified to go live. And you probably saw it a long time ago, but I was on it and I'm just like, I'm looking at the camera. I'm like, I'm feeling really anxious right now. And my heart's beating really fast and I'm feeling it in my chest. And as soon as I said it, it started to dissipate.
Yeah. And it's
So
like
weird.
you're acknowledging this human experience that you're having. And I think a lot of us we're not literate with emotion words. And one of my clients told me about this app. I'm going to show it to you. It's called 𝗕𝗺𝗵𝗵𝗁. It's free.
Oh,
And it's like this little heart right here, how we feel.
oh,
And you click on it and it lets you check in. And so
oh,
you check in and it has 4 quadrants. It has high energy, unpleasant, high energy, pleasant, low energy, unpleasant, low energy,
oh,
pleasant.
nice.
And then you click on those and it just gives you a whole bunch
Oh
of
my
different
goodness.
emotions in each one of those quadrants. Like relaxed means free from tension and anxiety, or thoughtful means thinking about the needs of others. Playful means feeling happy and lighthearted. It's like I don't know how many emotions here, but it's like it's so much more than good, bad, angry, happy, enraged. Here's a good one.
What does that one say?
Let's see.
I'm afraid to see.
Made furious by something filled with extreme anger. That's an interesting one.
Oh,
Or troubled means feeling worried about a problem or a conflict. Meh means feeling uninspired or blah.
meh, meh.
Yeah. Understood.
So are you supposed to, once you find out what it means, are you supposed to click on that and then it takes you somewhere else?
No, this is just a tool. Like if you're
just so you know.
Yeah, this isn't part of that process I was talking about earlier, but if you want to become more literate in emotion words, like I'm feeling understood. I'm feeling that people get me. I feel understood.
Yeah.
And so that's just a tool to use to become more literate in our emotional talk. But going back to that exercise of just sitting with your body and noticing the emotion, something that I like to do to bring me out of that is, okay, so if this anger had a voice, what would it tell me about why it's there?
Okay.
And sometimes it might say, I just wanted to relieve some tension. That's why I'm here. Or I wanted to feel justified in something, or I feel like I was wronged, or, we can give our emotions voice and just say, okay, why is this in me? Why, if it had a voice, what would it say about why it's here? Like sadness or grief, it might say, I want to be here because I really cared about that person. And
Okay.
now they're not here.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And so it's just interesting. We have so much wisdom in our minds and our bodies, but we don't access it. And this is just one more opportunity to access
Yeah,
parts of us. So, yeah.
I like that. And so once you get the answer, then do you sit longer and ask yourself other questions, or?
If you want, or you can just complete the process and decide, okay, what's the next thing that feels good for me to do? Sometimes it might be to just give yourself space. Sometimes it might mean to go talk to someone. Sometimes it might mean to just, I don't know, go on a walk. I mean, there's no prescription for this. This is like you discovering parts of you and emotions that you have and really becoming acquainted with them and loving yourself through this process of being a human.
Yeah,
It gets messy sometimes.
it sure does. So what about journaling?
Oh yeah, I love journaling. I actually journaled after this exchange that my husband and I had, and it was interesting. It's like, I don't feel like I'm good enough. I say things wrong. I don't speak very fluently. I'm not good on my feet or spur of the moment. Like it was interesting to see. I didn't have a bunch of things about him that made me angry. It was more of how I was feeling about myself and how I showed up in that moment.
Right.
Like, I feel unsupportive. Like I need to be different in order for him to feel better. Or it was just really interesting. And I think as I was looking at these things, I could really access that adult part of me and like, okay, you think that right now, but really that really isn't true. Or maybe, yeah, there is some truth in this one. Maybe there are some changes that you could make to feel better about yourself, and that's okay. But it was actually, I think journaling is a really kind of a gift to ourselves to see what maybe an irrational part of us might be thinking, or maybe it's the rational part, and just putting it out on either on paper or on a screen and just looking at it and like, that's interesting that my brain came up with that.
And it's your truth at the moment.
Sure. And it's allowing it to be there.
Yeah.
Because so many times we just make ourselves wrong.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So are you writing in the journal right after something happens, or are you scrubbing your toilet and then writing in the journal later? Are you scrubbing and writing? Are you talking into a journal app while you're scrubbing?
Yeah. No, usually I would just go hole up in my office and maybe read or maybe write. This time it just happened to be, I got to clean toilets. We have 5 toilets. That's a lot of toilets.
Oh my gosh, do you really?
Yeah. And they needed to be cleaned. And so I just used that anger energy to just go get started. And but I don't always just go clean in a rage when I'm mad. But that's just what it looked like on Saturday.
Did all of your toilets get cleaned during this time?
2 of them did. I think my husband cleaned the other ones. Yeah.
Oh,
I think I had mentioned
angry too.
Yeah, he was frustrated too, and he had his own process, which I don't know what that looked like, but eventually, probably after a few hours, we were able to come back and say, this feels heavy. I don't like the way this feels. This isn't us. This isn't what we usually do. And we're like, yeah, this is dumb, but we were able to come back together one more time and talk about it. And it wasn't really resolved. And then a few hours later, we came back and talked about it again. And it ended up being resolved by the end of the day. But it doesn't have to get fixed right then. Like in the heat of the moment, sometimes people just need to go to their corners, lick their wounds, process, feel. It doesn't have to be fixed right then. There's nothing to fix.
So when you come back together then, after a couple hours, and you want to talk about it, how do you do that? How do you do that in a calm way?
It's like, so let's process this.
You say that?
What was that? Yeah. Like, what was that about? And he talked about, all I was looking for was to figure out a date to have some people over. And I was just like, yeah, that's what I thought we were doing. But then I felt like I said the wrong things in the wrong ways. And, and I just kind of like, this is the story I was telling in my head. And he was just sharing the story of what he was thinking in his head about the same situation. It's like, it doesn't need to be us against each other. It's us like standing together, looking at a situation that happened and just sharing what was going on through our minds. It's not me against him. It's just like, okay, we have this problem. Let's look at this and we don't have to be upset with each other, but let's just talk about what was going on in our minds. Because I can't read his mind. He can't read mine. Even after 32 years,
Really?
it's impossible.
But that's great how you guys can do that.
Yeah, it's very
Calmly
vulnerable.
like that.
It wouldn't have been calm at the beginning. And even the second time it wasn't. There was still some emotion there. And he's like, yeah, I'm done. I'm like, okay, I won't ask any more questions. Because something that I do is I ask questions, but then it feels like I'm interrogating a person. And
Right,
I don't
I
see
know.
it that way,
Yeah.
but the other person does, and they feel interrogated. And so like, okay, I won't ask anymore. And then we just needed a little more space, and then we were able to come back and talk about it again. But let the other person, whether it's a parent, a sibling, a spouse, a friend, give space. Space is good.
So interesting. You sure handle it well.
Well, I don't know if I handled it well, but that's what it was. That's what it looked like. And we know that we love each other and that this isn't a reason for divorce or anything. This is just, I mean, people think conflict is bad. Like
Right.
conflict is such a negative thing, or feeling conflicted is a bad thing, but it actually does have utility. Conflict helps us face truth, whether it's with us, with another person, and it helps us to be able to talk about things and actually become more connected through the conflict and move beyond it. And we're just as happy now as we were before the conflict, but it was able to be a growing experience for us to be able to say what we really thought, what we really felt. And it was a bonding experience. It was good.
And so
Eventually.
did you end up having the people over for dinner?
We chose a date. We've sent out the plan, and yeah, and it's fine. It's fine. But he was going to like, well, your dad used to invite people over for dinner without telling your mom, and I don't want to do that. I'm very sensitive to that. And I'm like, that was like 30 years ago problem. That's not like now. And it was just interesting how our brains will go back to patterns that we had years and years and years ago and still act from those patterns. And I was just thinking that doesn't make sense, but I could see how he was just being sensitive to me, how he wanted me to be involved. Okay, what date, what time,
right?
What food, blah, blah, blah. And it was a great experience, because it's like, wow, he even goes back 30 years or more to how my dad used to be. And still that has an impression on him and how he wants to approach my space and be really kind and supportive to me. So it was beautiful.
That seems very nice to me. Very considerate.
He is very nice and considerate.
So what if he did invite people over and didn't tell you and said, hey, by the way, so-and-so's coming over for dinner in a couple of hours? Would you be okay with that?
I think my first response would probably be being upset and angry. And first of all, he would never do that. But then now it's like with coaching and with thought work, it's like, okay, here's the situation, how do I want to think and feel about this? And sometimes I might want to be mad, and I'm just going to let myself be mad, and I'm going to let myself be upset and honor that. And sometimes I'm like, okay, this really isn't a big deal. I can figure it out. I'm good at figuring out meals ahead of time. Here we go. Or we can just go get pizza, or we can whatever. But everything's figure outable.
Yes.
But I'm not going to like rob myself from being angry if I choose.
Yeah.
To be angry for a little while.
Right. And then hopefully the anger will go away before the guests come. Or do you stay angry while the guests are there and just And you don't tell them.
I've done both.
Have you? No, you haven't.
Oh, we can fake things as humans on the outside, but we can still be seething on the inside. I mean, anger was an emotion that was my go-to for lots of years, and I learned how to live with it being inside of me a lot. And so it's okay but I decided I got tired of having that be my emotion, my go-to. And so it was really great to get into coaching to see, oh, okay, anger does have utility, but do I want that to be the emotion that I go to all the time?
Right.
And what I found was anger was the umbrella, but there were lots of emotions under it. It was fear, it was insecurity, it was frustration, it was lots of feelings and emotions that I thought were anger, but really it was something deeper.
That's interesting too.
Mm-hmm.
And discomfort is a big one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because sometimes we just don't know what to do. So we go to our go-to emotion, and that's what it masks as.
So what are some positive outcomes that clients have experienced after learning about negativity issues?
I think the biggest thing is when we process a negative emotion or even talk about negative emotions, they realize that it's okay to allow them, that is going to add to their human experience, that life isn't always 100% amazing, that there has to be that 50-50 where, yeah, there are parts of life that are really great, and then there are parts of life that aren't great. And when they realize that that's kind of the balance, I guess, that it gives them permission to be more of who they are, as far as, oh, I can be a human and I can feel this emotion and it's okay. I can be sad and I can cry and it's okay. I can be frustrated. It gives them permission to not stuff emotions down. And I think when you give yourself permission to be a human, there's less judgment.
Yeah. A lot less pressure too. Yeah.
To be who you think others want you to be, or who you think you should be all the time.
I know it's good to just be yourself. It feels so good to not have to worry about that.
It does. And I think we are our hardest, like we are our biggest critics most of the time. We are judging ourselves the most. And when you allow yourself to have that full human experience and feel the full range of emotions and understand why you're feeling them and that it's okay, the judgment really dissipates.
Yeah. Well, is there anything that you wanted to share that I didn't ask you today?
I think we're good. I think I just want to encourage and invite your listeners to, if they feel an emotion, do they label it as a positive emotion or as a negative emotion? Like is feeling fear, is that negative or is that really useful? If they're feeling sadness, is that a negative emotion or is that a useful emotion to help them process and allow something that they do really probably do want to be sad about? And what if we looked at all emotions as just emotions, and then we can decide if they're useful or if they're not, if they're good or if they're not, instead of just jumping and saying, oh, this is a negative emotion here always. It will never be positive. It will always be a negative emotion. But what if that wasn't true?
And it's what also helps us get through grief. Yeah. If we feel grief and just allow ourselves, I mean, when people have died or my animals have died, I feel the grief. I really feel and I feel it everywhere I go. I don't just like sit in bed and feel my grief. I went to the bank and was feeling grief. I exercise while I'm crying, and I take a walk while I'm crying, but I'm constantly letting it out because it lets you move through the grief a little faster than if you're not feeling the grief.
Yeah, and sometimes when we hold emotions inside of our bodies and they don't have a chance to get out, that creates stress and dis-ease, which is disease. I mean, when we hold things in so much, it can cause problems physically.
Yeah.
And so I think it's really important to just allow it to be and be willing to experience it. And no, it doesn't feel good,
Yeah.
but it can be very empowering to say, oh, okay, here's anxiety. It's going to be with me today. And that's okay. And we do lots of things when we feel anxious or nervous or scared. We don't go hide in a corner. We just live life.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing all of this today. I'm sure it's going to be helpful to a lot of people.
Well, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
And where can people find you?
My website is juliemerrillcoaching.com. If anyone wants to email, it's julie@juliemerrillcoaching.com. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Julie Merrill Coaching. So
You're everywhere.
I'm everywhere.
Okay, well, I'll put your links in the show notes. And thank you again for coming on and sharing all of this with us. I really
You're so
appreciate it.
welcome. Appreciate you. Thanks for the opportunity. Have a great rest of your day.
You too.
All right. Bye.
Bye.